Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome. It is Tuesday. It is, in fact, I can report that it is indeed Tuesday.
That's good.
I think so. The WCBI Boxed Out podcast. A familiar friend joins us today. For those of you, that is our good pal, Brett Hudson, formerly of the Straight Sippin' podcast. Pour one out to Straight.
Yeah, for real.
But Brett is with Brett, just tell me all your titles right now.
Well, I only have one right now. Well, technically two. I'm the Alabama beat writer for the Tuscaloosa News, and I am the co-host of the Bama Beat podcast that we also do in-house. Although I say we're doing it in-house, we're actually doing it from my house now because we're all social distancing and isolating and all that. Harper, one of my daughters, has already been on the podcast. Crying in the background, which is just excellent professional podcasting. And I'm sure Emma will be on one before long.
I thought you were going to say, well, I only have one title, and that title is Dad.
That's probably what I should have said. But I'm still new to this whole dadding thing. I have way too much to learn. I got peed on last night.
Oh, nice.
That's
Living the dream.
Yeah. So I've already gotten that out of the way. That's fun.
You're officially a dad now.
There's vodka in this, by the way.
It's only noon.
I mean, yeah. It's a PM. It's fine.
That's fair.
12:08 Central. We're good. We're golden.
Quarantine is kind of like being at an airport permanently. Time doesn't matter. So if you want to wake up and have a beer and a burger, you're more than entitled to do so.
Beer and a burger at 8:30 in the morning. I'm here for it.
If you want to have vodka at noon, listen, that's on you. I'm not going to stop you from living your best life.
I mean, look, this is my life now.
That's what I'm saying. Live your best life.
So
There's
the
actually
great
like
dynasties
7
we
old
drink at
fashions
noon.
in here. There's actually like 7 old fashions in here.
Sounds about right.
I make 7 old fashions and poured them into this monstrous Atlanta United Cup Vamos Atlanta.
Made them in 7 individual glasses just so you could pour them.
And then put them all in my fingers and just went like,
Yes.
So speaking of your life now, good friend Brett, obviously a lot of what we've seen from you on Twitter with your time at the Tuscaloosa News has been football and baseball. Obviously you got big into the baseball beat as well. Just right off the bat, we go into the big news from yesterday, the NCAA deciding to give eligibility to all spring athletes back yet again. Just from what you understand, what are the details of that and how will it affect college baseball?
Baseball in particular is not as affected by it as other spring sports because they have the draft that impacts them a lot more. And I think the draft is going to be much more impactful than the extra year of eligibility because the reporting out there right now on the draft says it's going to be a 5-round draft. And when you put a 5-round draft on a draft that's normally 40 rounds, where the starting quarterback at Florida can get drafted somehow for reasons that baffle me, you have so much room to take chances on highly rated high school prospects, thus they never make it to campus. They never play college baseball because they choose to go play in some small town in North Carolina for a year or whatever. They start their minor league career. Now, with an only 5-round draft, I'm guessing that these pro franchises are going to be more incentivized to get sure things, which means more college players. So you are probably going to trim college baseball off the top a little bit more because you're probably going to get more seniors and juniors taken in that abbreviated MLB draft. But the flip side of that is you're going to get a ton of highly rated high school prospects that otherwise wouldn't have played college baseball will be in college baseball. And that's a huge benefit for like both of the SEC schools in your state, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, and LSU and Arkansas and Texas and Florida and Vanderbilt, schools like that that recruit at the absolute highest level that are normally hit somewhat hard by the draft. I don't know that they will be in this recruiting class. So the draft is probably going to have more effect on college baseball than this will, but I do think there is a chance that once you get to maybe 2023 and 2024, there could be a benefit for schools that sign big, good freshman classes this year. So freshmen in the 2020 baseball season. And Alabama is one of those that has a big, good freshman class because they could play a full season in 2024, which they wouldn't have had otherwise, right? Their eligibility would have lapsed in 2023 without a redshirt year. Now, why I don't think that's going to have a big impact on things, and Alabama's coach Brad Bohannon told me this yesterday, they still have that draft. And in the draft, you're eligible by age. So when you're 21, you can be drafted. That's why you see draft-eligible sophomores in college baseball that you don't see in football and others. So instead of being juniors and draft eligible, they'll be draft eligible sophomores because they've had 3 years on a college campus to age to 21. They just aren't juniors at that point. So it's possible that there are some schools out there that signed big, good freshman classes that will be able to hold on to them into the 2024 season, and those teams will be a lot better than they could have anticipated being. But I just think the draft, especially at the SEC level where all of these guys are pro prospects and they get drafted pretty consistently, I think the draft will more or less take away any long-term advantages from that. What remains to be seen is what happens in the MLB draft and how many high school guys come to college baseball that wouldn't have otherwise.
For spring sports, it is almost surprising that the NCAA did the right thing.
It's always surprising when the NCAA does the right thing. It's always surprising. It's always baffling. They never do that, ever. Literally ever. They never do that. So, yes, it was surprising. And I think the ramifications of this are more challenging in other sports than they are in baseball. Like I was talking to Alabama softball coach Patrick Murphy yesterday, and he's going to have all 7 of his seniors have already said they're going to come back. And when you bring in the freshman class that they've already signed, he's going to have 25 girls on his roster. Well, number one, he only has 21 lockers in his locker room. So he has to figure that out. But also the SEC travel limit is 22 and the NCAA travel limit is 20. And he said he's seen it in the past where schools that say have 25, 26 girls on their roster come to Tuscaloosa for a regional or super regional, and you see 5 or 6 players in the front row above the visiting dugout because they didn't make the travel roster. So since the entire sport, in theory, is going to have a bigger roster than they normally would, do the SEC and NCAA rosters, there's one of many issues that come with the bigger travel sizes, and track and field is a pretty convoluted thing too because they don't have a ton of draw to the professional level, right? I mean, the track and field professional ranks aren't nearly as lucrative as sports like baseball and basketball, et cetera. So you would assume you're going to see a ton of track and field athletes come back for that additional year, if not almost all of them. And the scholarship money can get really, really difficult there, especially as you start recruiting your 2021 class. Scholarship money is going to be pretty slim. So there's a lot of things they have to work through. I was kind of hoping that this would force them to get rid of the 11.7 in baseball and force them to increase the scholarship limits in track and softball too. But I guess the NCAA can only do one good thing at a time. So I'm sure they'll get rid of that 11.7 in like 2043.
From the coaches that you've talked to so far, what's the current level of concern for everything you just mentioned?
I think their biggest concern is for their scholarship situations in the future. And now you got to remember, I'm talking to coaches at Alabama, coaches around the SEC, other Power 5 conferences. They have a lot of money. They can bring back, like Alabama baseball had 9 seniors this year. Not all of them are going to come back, but several of them will. So you add up all of their financial aid they're getting from their athletic scholarships, you're probably talking at least over $100,000, if not more, in athletic aid that the school had no way of budgeting for, right? And you got to expand that over softball and track, golf, tennis, rowing, etc. That's not that big a deal for a school like Alabama. They got that money. Believe it or not, Alabama has the money to cover that. Does Southern Miss have the money? Does Jackson State have the money? Does New Mexico State have the money? I would guess in a lot of cases they don't. So I kind of wonder if what the transfer portal is looking like right now. Like I heard the transfer portal in track and field was absolutely blowing up last night because there are a lot of athletes out there that their school most likely won't have the money for, but they still want to continue their careers because they can. So the transfer portal is always a concern for coaches, but especially now. And the scholarship money of what their schools are going to be able to afford is another thing because and yes, they can go to the NCAA Student Assistance Fund to pay for these scholarships, but at the same time, there's a lot of Division I schools and Division II schools also trying to hit up that same fund, and clearly the NCAA is hurting for money if they're willing to, or if they're forced to slash their school by school annual contribution by like 60% that they slashed it the other day. So there's a lot of lack of money in the NCAA for probably the first time in its recorded history, and schools are going to have to deal with that.
You mentioned that lack of money. Today, the NCAA came out and said that their senior execs were cutting 20% of their paychecks. I'm curious, do you think any of that money is being allocated to these schools right now, or do you think it's just the NCAA trying to keep themselves currently afloat?
No, they're trying to keep themselves afloat. I mean, they've already given all they can to the schools with that funds that they divvied out that should have been $600 million and ended up, like 250, 260, what was the actual number there? Like they slashed that bad. That's the NCAA trying to keep themselves afloat because March Madness is a huge revenue generator for them. I mean, the college football playoff, that money doesn't go to the NCAA. That money goes to the football arms of all of this. The NCAA's biggest moneymaker are the men's and women's basketball tournaments and Omaha and Oklahoma City, 4 events that aren't going to happen this year. So the NCAA has to find a way to keep themselves afloat, and that pay cut is for that reason. Although schools are going to be faced with some of those tough decisions in the future potentially, and I'm sure we'll get to football eventually, but I imagine that is why football, they will stop at nothing to play some football, in my opinion, even if it's like a 4-game season. That is some inventory they can sell to ESPN and CBS and ABC and all these other entities that pay for college football so they can get some fraction of those huge TV contracts that they get, and they can try to keep their athletic departments afloat that way. Because I know the current SEC CBS deal isn't super lucrative, but the one they're signing with ABC and ESPN that's taking effect later in this decade, that's supposed to be like $300 million a year? Like, think about the revenue that comes from that. And we see the huge checks that the SEC sends out to its member institutions every year. And those checks finance the entirety of your volleyball program, the entirety of your gymnastics and your golf and tennis and all of those things. So, like I said, I'm sure we'll get to football later on, but the NCAA is already making those decisions, to your question, Courtney. And if the football season is impacted by this, the schools will have to make those decisions too.
4-game football season, what happens?
I'm sure LSU plays 4 home games and all of them at night, because that's how that works, right? I have no idea how they would do that. Like, I guess it would also depend on the timing. Like, would they just play every school's November the way it's currently constructed, or would the conferences just say, we're playing conference games only, here's your schedules, let's do it that way? I don't know, man.
You would need a preseason game too, you would think. You don't want to just run them out there and
yeah, that's the thing. Like, you would have to ramp them up.
Out there.
Right, you'd have to ramp them up with a preseason practice. So could y'all imagine covering preseason football practice in October? How weird would that be?
Imagine the game where you were just like everyone is just thrown out onto the field. So you've got like Alabama LSU game 1 or something like that.
Just cold turkey. Just throw them out there.
Is that like a 7-4 football game?
Oh, I don't want to watch
Two
it.
safeties.
Can we not? Could we not, please?
Here's what happens. You play it like a high school football jamboree. You have eight games through 4 weeks. You have two teams play one half, two teams play another half, another two teams play another half, and it's a huge 6-hour event at one venue.
Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and LSU all meet at Vaught Hemingway and play a half of football in round-robin form against each other from like 9 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., and all of it is streamed live on ESPN2.
Lord help
No
us.
Joe.
The winner of the Ole Miss State game gets half an egg. Since they play half an egg.
A scrambled egg. Someone in the back is scrambling up eggs and just brings out a plate of scrambled eggs to Mike Leach, who goes on some 15-minute diatribe about the history of humans consuming eggs.
While also dumping the eggs on top of himself.
The other half of the egg. Like, where does that go?
You save it for next year.
You pour it out. You pour one out.
You pour adult beverages in it and consume. You pour cane sauce in it since there's a cane on campus at Ole Miss.
Yeah, everyone just runs over to the pavilion and just dumps all the cane sauce.
Have a big old chicken tender party. People dumping chicken tenders and toast and fries and.
All right.
I'm telling you, this high school football jamboree thing needs to start gaining some steam.
Let's talk something slightly controversial right now.
Oh no.
You're not going to be surprised by the question. Where is everyone's current opinion on if football season will happen as planned or not, since we're talking about potentially cutting it in half?
I think people, to go back to the money thing, because spoiler, folks, college sports is all about money. I think people are so.
No way.
I know, it's weird, right? Coaches are making $8 million. No money for the players, though.
Brett, how dare you?
I know. It's just crazy how we don't have money for the players. Anyway.
All this time I thought it was for the love of the game.
Back in my day, I tell you what.
Hey, they're earning experience.
Life experience.
It's kind of like
priceless.
internship.
That's value. That's invaluable. Anyway, I think people are so optimistic or hopeful or desperate to play football and get some money that they haven't formed opinions quite yet on if the football season's going to happen. They're still working on doing everything they can to make football season happen. But that point of no return is starting to get closer because Brian Kelly, the coach at Notre Dame, has already said that he needs his guys on campus by July 1st to feel good about a football season, which I don't know why he would feel good about a football season anyway, but that's a different subject for a different day. Other schools that actually have national championship talent at national championship aspiration programs probably can do it a little bit later than that. Hi, Brian. Hi. But yeah, but the point of all of that is we're getting closer to that point of no return, because at some point you're going to reach that point that Brian Kelly put out there where you can't start preseason practice on time. And if you can't start preseason practice on time, you can't start the season on time, because as much as I kind of roll my eyes at spring football and all of that, everything that happens after spring football is actually really, really important, because they take that summer conditioning to get their bodies in shape for preseason practice. And then preseason practice is that time to get their bodies in shape for football season. Like there's two different shapes here. There's physical conditioning shape, and then there's collision sport shape. And you need time to build up for both of those things. So as much as I love making fun of Brian Kelly, he might actually be right in that you may need a full 2 months or at least 6 weeks to really prepare for a college football season, whether it's 12 games, 8 games, whatever. And it's March 31st and people aren't staying inside. and doing what they're supposed to be doing. We're not flattening the curve, so to speak. So we are going to reach that point of no return pretty soon, where if players and coaches don't have full access to their facilities by early July, middle of July, they're going to have no choice but to make hard scheduling decisions with the football season, because the players can't be ready for September 5th when this thing is supposed to kick off. And not to mention the week 0 games, which I don't know off the top of my head, but some schools are starting in late August thanks to the blessed week 0, which I'm pulling up right now. Let's see. Saturday, August 29th. Oh, right. Navy and Notre Dame are supposed to play in Ireland this year on August 29th. Yeah. Cal, UNLV, Hawaii, Arizona. I mean, those guys need to be on campus and practicing by late July, meaning they need to be in workouts by early July, late June. And again, that point of no return is coming a lot quicker than people really realize.
I'm sure we've all seen the meme too, or the joke that's circulating on Twitter of once you put college football on the line, you'll get people who live in the SEC region to stay home and start caring. And Brett mentioned how it's March 31st and there are still people who aren't staying home and trying to flatten the curve. Do we think if college football was legitimately on the line, we would see people following the CDC and the government's guidelines more, or
Look,
whatever?
Look, Nick Saban put out a video the other day, and Tuscaloosa traffic has gone down. I'm just going to leave that there.
And then you have coaches like Ogeron who are doing PSAs because nobody's listening to the government.
Well, yeah, Louisianans aren't going to listen to the governor, but they will listen to the LSU head football coach.
Coach O is the governor.
And probably the president.
As far as Louisianans are concerned.
Right, yeah. He is the head football coach at LSU. He is the governor of Louisiana. He is the head of the state Senate. He probably has 2 or 3 seats in the state House of Representatives too. So
probably their pastor as well. Probably has a couple churches.
Yeah, the state chaplain. He also owns at least 15% of Cane's locations in the state of Louisiana.
Oh my gosh.
10% owner of walk-ons too.
I've never been to a walk-ons. I
haven't either. I know there's one in Shreveport, but no one should ever go to Shreveport.
What is it? I don't know what it is.
It's gumbo. Yeah, it's a sports bar type of thing. Yeah. But the gumbo and everything else. It's apparently great. I just haven't been.
I've still never had gumbo.
I guess if we're going to put a bow on what you were asking, Courtney, my mom used to tell me this saying all the time, and you can probably fill in the blanks because I'm going to go with the more appropriate response with this. The masses are ignorant. People do whatever they want, whenever they want, and it doesn't really matter what people – you have to tell people – you have to shut things down for people to actually listen. So that's just my personal opinion, because again, it's Florida. You have 400 people on the beach every single day. They haven't shut down the beaches yet, so people will do whatever they want. I don't think people believe that college football will be shut down until, like Brett said, we get to finally
shut down
until it's too late. Yeah, they won't believe it until it's too late. And I think the favorite thing I've seen on Twitter over the last couple of weeks is the videos of the Italian mayors walking the streets cussing at people who are on the street, like dropping F-bombs at their own citizens, saying, "Get inside! Get inside!" You got to find that video if you haven't seen it. It's great. But I'm trying to envision Nick Saban and all of the on-field assistants and the new strength and conditioning coaches, since we don't have Scott Cochran in town anymore, walking the streets downtown, just ripping people new ones to get inside. Like that's what it would take. It'd be pretty funny, but I think y'all are right. People aren't going to pay attention until it's too late, and then they're going to get to late July, early August when they do eventually postpone the football season or whatever, and say, "Oh well, let's all get inside. Let's all figure this out." It's like, well, no, it's too late. You done messed up now.
Should have listened in March.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, 2 quick things I wanted to wrap up this podcast with. We'll finish with the hot takes on Courtney's Twitter to the podcast. But to start off really quickly, Brett, obviously your time here at Mississippi State, one of the blessed things that you graced us on social media with is, yes, not T. Henry's, but walkout songs.
Yes.
In the YouTube links of people with walkout songs. If you had to pick your walkout song, what would it be?
Oh, that is a great question. I get that question all the time, and I never have a good answer. It would probably – I'm going to steal from Peyton Wilson, the freshman catcher at Alabama, who had the Laffy Taffy song as his walkout song this year. It was pretty fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty fantastic. Yeah, that's it.
Chris, you're up.
My walkout song? It would be more recent, probably Young Nudie. I'm not sure if y'all listen to Young Nudie, but
Young
Nudie.
Don't listen to Young Nudie.
If you don't, you should check them out. But Young Nudie, Understanding. I like it.
All right. I'm with it.
Courtney.
I'm trying to think of one that's going to be appropriate enough to where people aren't going to come at me.
Mine's very quick. I can get this out of the way quickly. Temperature, Sean Paul, book it.
Obviously.
I'm going to go with –
This whole guy that the whole stadium gets lit because all of a sudden Sean Paul starts blaring.
Actually, a coaching staff probably wouldn't let me play Laffy Taffy, so I'd play Nuck If You Buck.
Hey.
That's what I do.
They're not going to let you play Laffy Taffy, but they will let you play Nuck If You Buck.
Probably.
Yes, they will.
The only right answer.
Probably.
What song would I pick? I know what song I would pick, but I'm refraining from saying it. So I don't want that smoke today. I get enough of it.
You're getting plenty of smoke from your other bad takes, which we'll get to.
I'm just going to throw out Space Jam because it's a hype song.
I like it.
Yes.
All his life.
Yeah.
Are the college students old enough to know that Space Jam life, though?
Don't matter. You have to. If you don't, you get out.
This is my one. I don't care if they know it or not.
Well, so they're going to learn today.
Yeah.
That's
Education. All right. Should I get my Twitter ready?
Yes, very quickly. So Courtney Robb put something on Twitter about the only pizza toppings that you can refer to her about are pepperoni and olives.
Best pizza toppings, pepperoni and black olives.
We were in such a good trajectory with pepperoni, and then we decided to just tank the stonks with olives. Plummeting.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to read out people's pizza takes because I said, hey, don't try and change my mind, and people on Twitter can't follow directions, and therefore many are trying to change my mind. You can't. So now we're going to roast you on this podcast.
Yes, so list them out, and everyone else give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the take.
All right, first one up, Tyler Horka, sausage, black olives, green bell peppers.
Olives.
The olives, throw it away, man. If it were just the sausage and the peppers, huge thumbs
I don't like
up.
sausage on my
Report that account. Report that account.
All right. Bobby Martinez had two of the worst takes in my mentions. Pineapples being the first, to which, and the second, which is even worse than that one, anchovies and mushrooms.
Okay, yeah. I'll take care of reporting that account. I got y'all on that one.
We just can't. Another person whose Twitter says canceled, which is really at Bulldog 2026, said, add mushrooms and you really got a home run. So it would be black olives, pepperoni, and mushrooms.
The black olives. I'm cool with the mushrooms.
The olives, man. Cheeks.
Yeah. Another person, which is Brick by Brick, Russet 1965, anchovies.
Oh, it's Butch Jones.
Who is putting anchovies on their pizza? Who is doing that? Who is eating anchovies, first of all?
Can we get a good take in here, please, for the love of God?
Where's the bacon? Where's the bacon yet?
Brad
Bacon,
Barnett says pepperoni, black olives, and sausage. People love the black olives, guys. I'll go up. Even though I don't like sausage on my pizza that much.
No black olives, man. No black olives.
Bulldog Cab said, you're missing the one topping that is essential, bacon.
Thank you. 2 thumbs up.
Good take.
All about bacon on the pizza.
Pepperoni, black olives, and pineapple, according to John Van Horn. No!
Yes. Felony. Double 2 felony counts. Bad take.
And the worst take of all, this one might be the worst take of all, and it's from a buddy of mine from high school, actually, and I hate to call him out like this on the pod, but it has to happen. And we all feel strongly. Banana peppers and grilled pineapple.
A pineapple. God, oh my God.
All of you putting pineapple. The only thing that could make this pizza worse
Reported.
is adding anchovies to it.
Is everything okay at home, y'all? You know.
No.
all these
It was until I
pineapples and
saw
black
these
olive
pizza takes.
Chris, give me a good pizza take now.
Pepperoni, bacon, sausage.
Too much meat.
Sausage, bacon, ham, green peppers.
Tom?
It's lit.
Really just bacon and pepperoni.
Pepperoni and black olives. I rest my case. The best pizza there is.
The best.
Oh, Brett's gone.
You okay over there, Brett?
Bye, Brett. Thanks for coming on the pod. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. He really left.
He'll be back.
The man's pouring more vodka. The best part would be, there he is.
Did you get more alcohol?
No.
Oh.
There he goes.
I had to go refill my vodka.
Yeah, we did it.
That's what Tom literally just said.
Brett, thank you for joining us. Hopefully we can do this again soon. Enjoy.
Not like we have anything better to do.
Neither do we.
Just catch me in between diaper changings, will you?
We'll do.
No, we'll catch you in the middle of a diaper change.
That would be hot podcasting.
Yep. Hot video content.
We are less than 30 seconds from this kicking me out. So everyone, love you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Later.
Bye.